Hadn't heard of anything. Well, Chris Russo did call. They got rid of him. There was no last show. But Mike Francesa had Chris Russo on his show, and I guess this has been played many places. Chris Russo broke down and started crying.
Oh, really?
You're kidding.
I didn't hear this.
The Mad Dog got
The Mad Dog is crazy.
So let's listen to that and enjoy some tears on the air.
I think that people who thought the show had reached its peak, I don't even believe that. I think you and I did a good job in the spring despite our problems. I think that you and I, with the big moment, were still as good as anybody. People don't realize how long 5.5 hours is. I know Mike. He knows me better than Mike knows Ro, and better than I know Jeannie. I mean, the bottom line. Mike knew me before he knew Ro. Before he had 3 kids, I knew Mike. Before I had 4 kids, and knew my wife. So... it wasn't an easy call. I'm going to miss that show. I wanted to stay away. I didn't listen this morning. I didn't think it was the... I couldn't listen to the calls this morning. I didn't want to listen.
Dog, one guy today said, because I'm going to break the mood here because you're going to make me cry and I'm never going to forgive you, but one guy said today that we were like the breakup of the Beatles, Eddie told me when we walked in. But Eddie said, be comfortable because the guy said you were John. And I said, oh, good, as long as Dog was Ringo.
Yeah.
Well, Mad Dog is Sad Dog.
Yeah, they were, and another thing that's got to be, they're probably going to have a big publicity thing for this, too. Next year was going to be 20 years. I remember that they were together. They were together 19 years.
Yeah. Wow.
And the story with Francesa was, he's connected to Imus. He was a stats guy for CBS Sports, and he knew everything there was to know about sports. He's a real fact guy. And what happened was, in 1989, he predicted that Seton Hall would go to the Final Four, which was like a real long shot. And Imus, it was a famous thing, Imus bet him that if he was right, he'd buy him a Porsche. Mm-hmm. And that became within the sports world, it got a lot of publicity that Imus would buy him a Porsche. So Seton Hall started beating everybody. And when they get to the Final Four, of course, Imus totally reneged on the bet. He made an on-air bet.
Bought him a Porsche.
And Francesa, everybody kissed Imus' ass, so he didn't hold him to it. But he was, fuck, man. Everyone listening, Imus owed him a Porsche.
Wow.
You know how you're serious about on-air bets?
No, he should have done it.
The guy predicted Seton Hall would go. They went to the final game. They lost to Michigan by a fucking point, and I was a big Seton Hall fan. So that got him some national recognition. He then got hired by CBS Sports to cover the NCAA tournament for 2 years or 3 years in a row. So he got national exposure, for instance.
Right.
That was in '89. So then they paired him with Russo later in that year, after the afternoon drive guys. And between Francesa's fame and Russo's insane personality, they became an instant success. It's like a success on their level. Nothing can be compared to what you ever did. It's weird. But locally, they were a big deal, And,
I don't know their act. I've never heard them. But based on what I just heard, on this little clip that I played where Mad Dog cries,
right,
Francesco committed 2 errors, in my point of view, right there on that show.
He didn't let him cry.
The guy's
he wanted to break the mood.
Listen, you got 5.5 hours to kill, and the guy is crying, and he's saying something passionate, and he goes, well, I'm going to jump in here and stop you from crying and showing your emotions, because I'm afraid I'm going to cry. Now, he didn't sound like he was going to cry at all.
Didn't sound anywhere close to it.
You got a guy who is erupting and making things real, and he ruined the moment.
Well, that was my point about the show. Chris was always emotional on the show.
Right. So you could see already the better broadcaster is Chris Russo, and there it is. That's my opinion, just based on one little clip.
I'm looking forward to him coming here, because I was telling Robin a couple of weeks ago that I feel like the one thing missing from here is a big sports presence. I like local sports,
right?
And it's the one thing I wasn't getting here, so I'm really excited about him coming.
Yeah, well, this is a national forum, though. What is he going to do?
They talked about everybody.
They talk about everything.
They did, okay.
Yeah, but they're definitely
they're definitely New Yorkers.
The thing about Russo is he's a New Yorker, but he doesn't like any New York teams.
He's a big San Francisco Giants baseball fan.
He doesn't like the Mets or the Yankees, and he doesn't like the Giants. Francesa's a big Giant Yankee fan.
All right. Well, there it is. So the guy's coming here, and
he's the more entertaining of the two. Absolutely. He would do Letterman. Like the other thing, like Letterman would have Russo on.
Right, of course.
You know, and Francesa, I don't think ever did Letterman. So there was always like that. Like Francesa would gently rub at him about the fact that he was on national television talking about the NCAA tournament, but then Russo would do Letterman because he's the more. When he talks, he's very animated and odd looking, actually.
Right.
Like Jerry Lewis.
He's you know, you always say genuine. He's genuine.
Right.
He's not,
well, that's an interesting broadcast. All right, good. That's enough on that, Gary. I mean, we'll discuss this guy till people.
Is that a definite, by the way? Though?
No,
is he here?
Rumor.
It's a rumor.
It's a rumor. It's not done. Gary, all right. What did you want to say? Now I feel bad. He wants to say something. I cut him off. He gets angry.
I know. Me and Gary talk about that show because he used to listen quite a bit too. I think he still does.
Gary wanted to say something. Gary, tell me what you were going to say. Now I feel bad.
Now you're dying to know what it was he wanted to say.
He was about to say something about Mad Dog or something, and I said it's enough already with Mad Dog.
It's not that big a deal.
All right, what were you going to say? Go ahead.
There was a very interesting dynamic between them because they really didn't like each other, and they will deny this, but they had gone through periods of time where will admit that they didn't talk to each other except when they were doing the show.
Right.
And they were on the Yes Network on television.
Right.
And watching them was the weirdest thing in the world. They would sit like catty-corner to each other. Mike would look at the paper the entire Howard, 5.5 hours, and sometimes they wouldn't make eye contact the whole day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like you know how we're all in here and we're all looking at each other?
Right.
Yeah.
They could have done that show from two different cities, and it wouldn't bother them.
And then during a commercial break, not even look at each other. Like, one would bolt out of the studio.
But in a way, maybe it would have worked better if they did it from two different studios. Maybe they wouldn't have gotten on each other's nerves as much.
Yeah, I can't tell how they got on each other's nerves because they never seemed to communicate.